When brands are trying to get their marketing right, when they're trying to build their brand, when they're trying to expand their brand or revamp, there's 7 huge mistakes that they usually make. And these mistakes cost them opportunities, cost them traction, and it costs them sales, cost them results or conversions, whatever that means for them. In this video, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to dive right into these 7 mistakes that brands tend to make. I have some notes here with me on my laptop. I'm going to use them to guide me as I detail the problems that these mistakes cause, and then also give you the fixes and how to avoid these mistakes altogether. So let's get into it. So the first mistake that we're going to talk about is you're trying to tackle too many content types at the same time. Now, the problem with this mistake is that making content, contrary to what people may believe, is not easy. Making content is a very involved process. You can only do one thing effectively at a time. You can only expect to do one thing reasonably at a time. If you're trying to juggle video, copy, you're trying to create live streams, you're trying to create graphics, you're trying to manage events, all of those things are very involved processes that require a lot of planning, a lot of thinking, a lot of deliberation with your team. And yes, while you could just run and gun and just do things on the fly, it's better if you do plan it out and have campaigns that run through it. So some of the problems with this, like I said, making content is not easy. You can only do one thing effectively at a time. You only have so many hours in the day. So while you might want to do all of these different things with content, you only have a certain number of hours. You personally, as an individual, even if you bring a team together, you guys only have a certain number of hours in the day, week, month, year to actually get that content done. And then the biggest problem with trying to make too many pieces of content at the same time is that you still have to run your business. As a small business owner, or if you're a marketer working for a brand, you still have to do the other aspects of your job. The business still has to run. So you can't spend all this time, or like copious amount of time, just creating content. You still have to do other things around the content and do other things around your job, like administrative tasks. No. Here's the fix. Here's how you avoid these problems. Number 1, you build a bigger team. Now, if you have the resources, it makes sense to go ahead and build this team. It's great if you can pull together people who are capable enough to make the different types of content that you want to produce. That's the ideal. That's what, when you see all of these huge brands across the world, that's exactly what they do. They have huge teams with different specialists that focus on different things. The next thing you could do is get better production and management tools. You have, with the prevalence of AI, with the prevalence of automation tools now, there's so many options for you to be able to augment and automate a lot of the processes that you do with content creation. And so it's just a matter of you experimenting, finding those tools that can help you basically turn one man into 100. And the next thing, which most brands tend not to want to do, is you can scale back. Yes, you want to produce all of these types of content, but you can, when you're starting out, or if you have not produced content on a grand scale before, you can scale back and start with one type of content. It may sound discouraging, or it may sound, like you won't be doing a lot, but trust me when I say that scaling back and then ramping up after is probably the best move you can make in terms of creating content. Now, that leads me into big mistake number 2, which is you're trying to tackle too many content channels at the same time. The big problem with this is that, similar to making content, managing these channels is not easy, because this is not just about posting content. This is also about engaging with the audience that is on this channel, on these channels that you're working with. Similar to making content, you can only focus on one thing at a time. So let's pull in content creation, but then let's also pull in the channels that you're putting on the content. So if you're focusing on multiple forms of content at the same time, and you're focusing on multiple channels at the same time, you're going to have to manage relationships, manage people, manage interactions, manage posting on these different channels at the same time. Now, that's a lot, because that's a lot. You can only reasonably focus on one channel at a time. You only have so many hours in the day. Now, this is repeated from the content bit, because you and your team, no matter how many people are on your team, you only have so many hours, so much time to do these things. And also, you still have to run your business. With all of that being said, so pulling content, pulling channels, you still have to run your business. So it is worth thinking about. These are some serious problems that will get you caught up in the process of making and not really making progress when you're making, right? So the fix, right? How you avoid these. build a bigger team. Similar to producing content, if you want to produce more, it makes sense to have more or build a bigger team that can handle the more. The next thing you can do is actually get better management tools for managing the channels. The same way that you can automate and augment your content creation with AI, with automation tools, like there are tools out there that will help you to augment and automate producing, like pushing out and managing stuff on managing platforms and managing interactions with customers. Now, you do want to maintain some of the organic nature, some of the personable nature of managing the channels, but at the same time, if you want to produce a lot of content, you are going to have to leverage tools to make it easy for you. Then the next thing that you can do, which I recommend all the time, if it is that you don't have the capacity to produce a lot or to manage a lot of channels, is scale back. Start with one channel. A single channel that you focus on, that will help to propel you and your brand, so that you can get the resources, make the sales, make the conversions to actually expand and increase the number of channels that you're running. Now, all of that leads me to the next mistake, which is you're trying to build too many communities at the same time. So we've spoken about content, trying to make too much content. At the same time, we've spoken about trying to focus on too many channels at the same time. Now we're focusing on trying to build too many communities at the same time. There are different places that you can produce, and you can produce content, you can release content, and you can make communities, such as your mailing lists, your social media followers, like your in-person gatherings, right? You have special lists that you can have for your in-person gatherings, like your events, your mixers, conferences. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because, similar to producing content and managing, content distribution channels, managing a community is not easy. To manage a community effectively, you have to engage with these people. Like, you have to engage with everybody who's in your community. You have to be providing value on a regular basis. And if you couple that with making content, or you put that together with making content and managing the channel that you're putting the content out on, now you're managing the interactions with the people who are on these channels, absorbing this content that you're putting out, and they have follow-up questions, they have additional insights that they want from you, they have different requests that they're going to make from you, that you have to moderate them. It's a lot of work, so it's not easy. Then once again, you can only focus on one thing at a time. If it's you by yourself, then that's a lot of pressure. So you have content, you have channels that you're putting out on, and then you have the community that you're trying to nurture and manage. Even if you're a big team, like your team can only do so much and manage so much at a given time. Then the next thing, you only have so many hours in a day. Like, you only have so many hours in the day, so many hours in the week, so much time in the month or year that you can actually manage, like commit to managing channels. And not to mention, you still have to run your business. You still have to do all the other operations in your business, and that's a problem. That becomes a problem when you neglect what's going on in your business just so that you can produce content, unless your business is content. But it's a problem, because you still need to run your business while you're producing what you need to produce. Now, here's the fix. Here's how you avoid the problems that come with managing too many communities. You build a bigger team. Whatever your team size is now, if you find that you don't have the capacity to manage all of these communities at the same time, all the communities that you want, all you have to, the first consideration is, can I build a bigger team? Can you build a bigger team? Think about that. The next thing is get better production and management tools. Similar to, how you tackle the problems for making more content or managing more channels, you can consider automation tools and consider moderation tools, AI tools that can help you to manage communities better, to manage the interactions that you have with communities. Even something as simple as getting key questions or key requests inside a community, and then pointing people to like a help center, or pointing people to like creating assets that can help people within the community, so that you can manage that interaction with them. And then the next tip, scale back. Like, if it is that you find that you want to do all of this creation, you want to manage all of these communities, or you want to manage a community and it's getting really big, I would suggest you scale back and focus on managing one. And then when you're at the point now when you have the bandwidth, you have the resources, you have the team to manage multiple communities, then you expand, then you increase, then you add another community to your list, you add another community to where you're going, to what you're doing. Now let's talk about big mistake number 4. CTAs. Your CTAs, your calls to action, are not simple and clear. Now, when you're producing content, you should have a call to action at the end of all the content. You should have a call to action there. Now, the problem with CTAs that aren't clear and that aren't simple, number one, your audience doesn't know what to do. And if they don't know what to do, they're not going to do anything, or they're going to do something that you don't want them to do. That's the bad. The worst thing is that your audience does whatever they want. So not only are they not doing what you want them to do, they're just doing what they want to do. And then the worst thing is that your audience does nothing. These are problems because there is a specific thing that you want them to do whenever your audience watches a piece of your content. And so you want to make sure that your call to action, whatever that CTA is, you want to make sure that it's clear enough that they can just take the action right away. Now, the fix for this is very simple. It's use a simple and clear CTA on your content. Don't try and use fluff. Like don't fluff it up. If you want them to buy a book, tell them, the link is in, you can buy the book, the link is in the description. If you want them to click on a button or watch the next video, tell them you can watch this video right here that's on the screen, or you can watch the next video, the link is in the description. If you want them to sign up for an event, tell them that. Just be very simple, very clear, so that they know what to do, and they can take the step right away. Now that leads into big mistake number 5, which is you're using way too many calls to action on your content. Now, the huge problem with this is that because there are too many options, your audience actually does nothing. This is what's referred to as analysis paralysis. You have too many things to do, you have too many options to make, you have too many possibilities, and so you get stuck not making anything because you can't really make a decision, as opposed to having one decision. Now, the fix for this is very simple. You just have one call to action per piece of content. So for every piece of content you put out, you have one call to action. You have a single call to action for that piece of content. Now, still going along the lines of calls to action, big mistake number 6 is you don't use any calls to action on your content. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because your community doesn't know what you want them to do, so they do nothing. Now, if you make a piece of content, my assumption is that you actually want them to do something after they finish watching the content, whether it is to watch or read or consume another piece of content, or you want them to buy something from you, or sign up for a product, or sign up for an event, or go to another page. Like, you want them to actually do something with the content, or even to share this piece of content with somebody. You want them to do something. The fix for this is to add a call to action to each piece of content, no matter what it is. Make it simple. Use one call to action, but make sure that you have one call to action after each piece of content that you put out, so that you can drive them towards helping you achieve some goal that you have. Now, let's talk about big mistake number 7, and that is you're not putting out any content at all. This is something that plagued me for a very long time. I can be very, very honest, very open right here. Not putting out content, the big problem with that is no one knows who you are, no one knows what you do, and no one knows what you want them to do for you. That is a huge problem if you're running a business, if you're building a brand, if you're putting out content with the intention of, building influence and becoming a thought leader or selling products. It's a huge problem because if nobody knows who you are, nobody can like you, nobody can get to know you, nobody can know what you do. If nobody knows you exist, they won't see you. Now, the fix for this is start putting out content. It's very simple. There's no other piece of advice that I can drop on it. It really is just start putting out content. If you want to dive deeper into these 7 huge marketing mistakes that brands make, I've written a book called Small Business Big Presence, where I go really in depth on all the 7 mistakes. I also talk about a number of other topics surrounding marketing and how you can leverage online channels and do effective marketing to build your brand, gain influence, and drive real results for your business. It's available on Amazon, and you can find the link in the description below.